Running Sentences presents Pirates, Politics, and Potentially Treasure. Book 2, Part 10. Treasure Hunt begins. As the hunt for the treasure starts off, there's lots of debate and little actually searching as they've landed on a strange, weird planet with its own problems. This story is written and narrated by Michael Honore. It is the work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, real situations, events, characters, businesses, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, and situations is purely coincidental. Copyright 2023, Michael Honore, all rights reserved. The sprawling tiger touched down gently on the clearing that had quite a few trees around it. Once down, a group of soldiers were quick to disembark and spread out, holding the ground around the site for any dangers. When no creatures or even animals came out, the king and queen finally descended down and took the first steps about the place, all with protective suits on, of course. Well, we made it in the stories that I've managed to get a hold of. Tale of a pink planet being home to this treasure, so we've got that going for us. Yes, what stories I've heard also said something about this place. I fear, though, that is all anyone ever has known about it. I take it that you want to find those pirates and utility, then. Is there some sort of strange belief that they have some sort of answers that we do not? The king shook his head, yes, and then no. They got us here, so after so many tries have failed, so they must know something. We should keep an eye on them in case of anything. Is that so bad of an idea? No, it is a solid plan, and, well, I was thinking something along the same lines, so, Oni, let us go find those rascals before they manage to destroy things and steal them. A nearby soldier saluted as the group departed in search of their pirates. Utility had not taken the lead of his group as they wandered off through the woods. No one in particular seemed to be leading them much of anywhere, and they were just moving through this area. The soldiers up front were taking their time moving through. The ground wasn't challenging to move through by any means, and the trees were pretty separated from one another. They did keep an eye out for any of the other Groggians or any potential followers as they went, but made no effort to actually hide themselves from anyone. Cordite had kept to the middle of the group, sort of lost in thought and not paying much attention to things around him. Is your health okay? He looked over surprised by the interruption from Tulis. He paused for a moment, thinking about something with a bit of a far-off stare. I could ask you the same thing, couldn't I? I did a checkup, and they said that they saw some weirdness, and they would run more tests. All this aboard the cruiser, but they mostly gave me a clean bill of health. Now what about you? I'm fine. Doc said she couldn't find what was wrong that set off her original diagnosis, so I guess that means I'm okay. Or we'll just find out at some point, though. Maybe I just end up falling over in some unexpected moment. This earned him a rather heavy glare, which he was surprised by. Death was something that could happen at any time, and he'd accepted that sort of fate. Pirates all over joked about death when it would come and how they could not control it. So what's this any different? But it really did sort of set off his mind in curiosity. I think I'm missing something, if you don't mind filling me in. What is it? You seem to care about what happens to me? What is happening to me? The glare softened for a moment, then disappeared as she looked away from him. That is nothing. I'm concerned about a lot of things and would rather avoid seeing any more death, if you don't mind. He decided to leave it at that, since the group was now standing in front of a rather large river and that had swept away a tree that someone had gently touched, sending it crashing into it. Then this had all brought them to a stop. The pink tree-like object had disappeared from view, and had yet to bubble back up. The flying squirrel slowed as it approached towards the planet. They had lost sight of the two ships that had hurried away, and now the Black Cage gang of pirates were flying their ship closer to the planet, while the space station and the squirrel found themselves holding back a bit. After a moment or so, though, the engines began kicking into full burn, as they too began to head into chase after these crazy aliens, though some of the repairs on her did not look like they were going to hold up for very long if she continued on this way. An engine which had been looking like it was firing strongly now flickered, and occasionally the flame would go out entirely on it. Still, they limped on. The activity aboard the bridge of the Flying Squirrel was a busy one, to say the least. Ophelia had to keep an eye on everything, since most of the time they didn't land this big lunk of a cruiser this sort of fashion. No, it was mostly docking procedures, but on a planet devoid of such a place, they would have to hope and pray that the landing gear worked, since they hadn't really had the chance to try it lately. "Have you found those two ships yet?" "Oh, 3 ships. The Black Cage gang as well." Ophelia didn't bother to respond and only looked to her radar operator. They nodded and returned to her look with a grim look. They could now clearly see the ground that made up this mostly oceanic planet. "We don't see them, which means they probably landed, and we will need to get closer to look out for them." "Well, do that, then." "As she says, watch out for them and get a good read on who they are before we approach them." There was a flash of lasers that crossed in front of the window, and the ship jerked to the side and away as a result. Anyone not sitting was sent scrambling to their left as the Flying Squirrel made a hard bank away as it got closer and closer to the ground. "What was that? Was that one of them?" There was a look around as everyone collected themselves and the ship righted itself. "Either one of the ships or someone has a self-defense turret on this planet and it's shooting at us. Anyone get a hard sight on what it was?" "Groggy and Yacht, though we are now sailing away from it." "Anyone see anything around it?" There was a quick silence as the computers were worked at the orders of the captain of the ship, Ophelia. "Seems like a skeleton crew from what we got past it, from what our computers can tell us. I can confirm, though, it is the King and Queen's ship." "I've spotted a landing area up ahead. Do you want us to go down, Captain?" Ophelia cast a glance backwards towards Coral to see what she thought on the matter. There was no response as a faraway, studied look had taken over the face of the pirate. "Excuse me, Coral, do you wish to find the other ship or sit down here?" The look on the lady didn't go away, though, so Ophelia shrugged and then turned, with a nod, to the helm operator. They took the order in stride and began preparations for landing. "Warn our ship that we are landing, okay? Where is the space station, by the way, and the Black Cage pirates around here?" A few warning lights had gone off, with the siren to announce that something was wrong. The crews were doing their best to ignore it, as though they all did their job. Coral now, though, had broken out of her stupor and gone over and grabbed at Ophelia's arm. "What is going on here?" "We're landing to see if we can find these treasure hunters before they find the treasure. That is what you want, isn't it?" "The space station is floating above the planet. We will still have a connection with them. The Black Cage pirates, though, appear to have disappeared, ma'am." "Is there something you would rather be doing, Coral?" Looking furiously at Ophelia, she yanked her away from the command station and towards the side. Coral then moved to take up the captain's position. This the crew did notice as they turned to her, none of them paying any attention to their stations at the moment. "This is my ship now. You are under my orders." "And why should we listen to you?" "Why would you listen to a captain who has never gotten you treasure or any pirate ships or any goods that you can really claim?" There was a silence followed by a lot of noise as the ship bumped down onto the planet's surface. The Grogian soldiers were careful as they made their way through the woods. Each had a rifle at the ready, and the royals were slowly following behind, circled around by other soldiers. Neither looked happy with the state of things, nor the large group of former politicians that were also not far behind. "Why haven't you found those pirates yet, gentlemen?" "We're tracking them as best we can, sir. It takes time through an unfamiliar territory." "This isn't good enough. We need to get this stuff before they do." The soldier who had been responding to them, who was a bit in front of them, looked back at them crossly. "It might be easier to track the treasure if you told us what it consisted of." "Gold, gems, precious metals, and various artifacts made out of previously mentioned items. Is that good enough for you? And how does that even help?" "We have tracking devices that can pick up on such things, but without specifics it can only be set to search for metal. Right now it isn't picking up anything." "Then concentrate on the villains ahead of us, somewhere or around us, and find them." The major looked ready to say something more, but shut up and stormed off ahead. A quick attempt had been made by the galactic soldiers to build a boat out of nearby trees so that they could cross this giant river. It went well at first, the actual building part, with it being put together. Lashing logs together was easy enough, and they'd found some hardy twine amongst the trees. Upon putting it into the water, it disappeared under it. Seeing that this wasn't going to work, the group then moved up, following the river upward to see if it narrowed anywhere. Utility had begun to hang a bit back, looking towards Cordite and Company, as they slowly joined their group while they moved. "I thought I saw another spaceship cross over the area not too long ago." "Yes, we all noted that thing online. What do you care about it?" "It looked like the Flying Squirrel." In case you weren't familiar with it, that is Pirate Captain Ophelia's ship, Mr. President. And she was here before us, if she's still in charge of it. Or at least she was supposed to be here before us. I don't know if she actually was. She likes to survive, so it's probably her. Well, that makes things messy. I don't need more people here searching for treasure or goods or anything else. How are we even searching for them, by the way? This whole thing seems rather mindlessly just going forward. Well, Cordite, the research that I know was done by my people, says that this is the way. If that isn't good enough for you, I don't really care. The treasure is reportedly in a canyon that cannot be seen by the naked eye, and a river leads to it. That's the way the stories say, and that's what we're going with. There is no doubt, President, that you know things, and we would just like it laid before us so that we don't walk in the wrong spots. Just follow along, it should be fine, Francis. The soldiers are leading the way, so if anything happens, you'll see it happen to them first. Having had enough of this conversation, Utility then moved ahead, annoyed. He had been trying to be pleasant, and get everyone to agree with him, and mostly to make sure that they knew nothing. Success on that last point, but they'd mostly been questioning way too much. The trek had kept going into the early evening hours, with the sun a brightly splotchy orange that hung in the sky. It didn't look like it wanted to go down any further, even though it was turning into evening, as the group found a sudden, sharp hill before them that quickly became rocky. The water remained low as it cut into the rocks, until it stopped completely, as the river had become a waterfall. Tulis was looking about uncomfortably as they came to a stop for a moment. It didn't feel like she'd been there before, but there was an odd sensation that there was some sort of memory from here. "Are you okay, Tulis?" "I'm fine, brother. A little weirded out, but okay. You?" "I don't like it here, mostly because of the color. Not that the pink is the problem, it's the sameness of it all. It's driving me mad." She could agree to that thought, and she liked pink colors on most occasions. Too much of the same thing, though. It was getting a bit disorienting to look at. With a shake of her head, she decided to take a few steps away and forward, and found herself by the river trying to keep track of where the land and everything was, only to find her footing wasn't as stable as she'd expected it to be. One foot found the water and sank deep into it. Whoa! To her, it felt like there was something grabbing a hold of her leg and trying to pull it down so that the rest of her would follow. Her hands grabbed at the nearest tree, but at the slightest yank, that fell over and joined her in the water. "What are you doing, Tulis?" Nero grabbed a hold of her arm, but the suction of the water was now pulling them both towards it. "Let go, you don't want to get sucked in. I think something is going on." However, other hands had begun to grab at her, trying to help her out, but it mostly seemed to make her get pulled in further. "Have you tried relaxing?" Words from the president drew a sharp look from her, since she couldn't do much of anything at the moment. "I'm only saying it's because you don't seem to be doing it. Who knows how things work here?" Everyone released their grip on her and took a step back. So she, in response, relaxed a bit, but that did nothing to help her, as she sank that much quicker. "Not helpful." "Well, it was worth a try in the first place." An advisor holding a book had run up to the president, whispered something to them, and then pointed towards the water. Utility nodded to this, then turned to Cordite. "Go save your girlfriend, by the way." "What? I don't have a girlfriend, and if you mean Tulis, how is me jumping into that stuff going to help?" "Yes, don't jump in here, it'll probably kill me and then kill you." "Fine, do it to save Tulis and because I'm ordering you to, not because she's your girlfriend or anything." "Why would you order me to do something?" In a snarl, the president marched over to Corday and pointedly pointed to the water. "Because it's where secrets may lie, and I need someone to check it out. If you don't do it, then I will merely order my soldiers to dump you and your pirate friends, a whole lot of you, into the water anyway. Your choice." With an annoyed look, Corday moved over to the river and looked down at the dark, deep blue. Tulis at this point felt water coming in around her head and mouth, stopping her from speaking or complaining. All she could do was watch as he jumped into the water in a sort of dive and then disappear from view. The deep woods had sucked any semblance of direction, along with the dark, dusty wind that had kicked up around them. The Grogian soldiers, along with pretty much everyone, found themselves almost alone. The king and queen hadn't huddled together much, but they closed in on one another now that they were cut off from the rest of their group and seeing them. And they should be right in front of them all, but they didn't feel or sense that group around them. "Are you fools there?" "Guards, soldiers, where are you?" There was no response that came back, and they moved tentatively together forward. Trees would pop into view and they would dodge out of the way, then sometimes a rock would come. That too would be moved around, and the whole thing was very disturbing to them, and now around this latest tree they really could see absolutely nothing aside from dust. Usually, there was a few feet in front of them that was visible. Here, though, all they could see was this orange, brown, sort of sandy dust, and which they realized was the last of the sunlight trying to break through this arid air. It took them a few more feet before the queen grabbed a hold of the king's arm. He was yanked forward as the two disappeared from view. Corday could breathe and see things in this dark space that was water, he guessed. It wasn't comfortable to do either of those things, and he felt himself falling, unable to swim. He'd ordered his arms to flap about to try and do that, but they didn't listen, just idly floated by his side. What he could see, which wasn't much, was the surface, but not much beyond that, and then there was Tulis not far away to the side. She wasn't fully sunk into the stuff yet. Her legs appeared to be sort of pointed upwards, but she could turn her head to see him. Are you okay?" Somehow, with the ability to breathe in this stuff, even though everything told him he shouldn't be able to, was disconcerting. But he found himself able to talk and breathe in it, so he sort of went with it. Fine, you? Thinking? Yeah, I figured that part out. Can you stop? He ordered his body to do something, anything at this point, but all that felt like it was doing was increasing his rate of sinking. Nope. I'm gonna turn around now. Moving about as best he could, I felt there was a fair amount of time before he got exactly what he'd wanted. Before him was a sort of darkness that felt like it looked as the same as the surface that he'd just been staring at. Confusion poured over him as everything now felt like it was speeding up, and he was launched towards this other place with this sort of bright light and orangish glow just beyond it becoming more and more visible. The rustling of bushes brought about several galactic soldiers to point their rifles towards it. A moment later, with hands up, Ophelia emerged with some of her pirates, followed by Coral and some other pirates who were with her. "Stop there! If I stop here, I might be shot in the back by that one." She signaled that Coral was the one who wanted her to continue moving. "Shut up and stop there, Ophelia. All this trouble and none of it to get what anyone wants." "Oh, on the contrary, pirate, I believe you are Ophelia, right? I've heard you mentioned in passing by a few sources. This is exactly where everyone needs to be, including you. If you could explain that, please." "Oh, of course. The treasure is here according to all information I have. It will only show up when former pirates and royals are where they need to be according to diaries and such and so on." "We're missing a few royals then, aren't we?" The president smiled towards Francis and shook his head now. "The Queen, you mean, I assume. The King and the Grogians doesn't matter much from what we've looked up. And no, she isn't meant to be exactly here. She is another place where she has to be, I think. These books are sort of not exact or precise. But I don't think she needs to be here." "If you could explain what you mean by this, and all you know, please." "Oh, fine. There are plenty of old diaries from pirates and annoyed Grogians who are willing to talk about what they knew, especially when given the monetary incentive to do so. I've had people working night and day to decipher these things since the rumors of this treasure have become such a hot topic." "You threw my sister into that stuff because you think it's down there, the treasure here?" A nearby soldier to Nero jabbed at him with the butt of their gun in the back of the head after a glare from utility. "You were right there and saw her fall in on her own. Feel free to join her, but don't start blaming things on me when it was her own fault, unless you want to join them on their search, sir." There was a moment's pause from Nero, who slunk back a few steps and away from the center of attention. Ophelia took this moment to look around and see who was there and settled on Lion for a moment. "What do you need from me, Mr. Galactic President?" "I don't know exactly, miss. The books don't say why we need someone from your family line, but we need you. The Nettle family haven't even been pirates. I'm the first and probably the last on the line who would be willing to do such a job." To this, the president signaled to a nearby worker who brought over a book with him. Utility then simply pointed to her so that the book was brought over to her. The diary in front of you now, Ophelia, is Captain Penelope Nettle, who I believe is your mother, an esteemed captain for the Grogian Navy, who lived a long life and many tales be told by her. Having taken the book into her hands, she looked at it and then around at everyone. "I know nothing of this." "Oh, it seems everyone rarely does. Read it and find out while we all wait. And, who are holding her hostage, I assume, put down your weapon unless you want you and your pirate group hurt." To this, Coral backed off a bit, holstering her sword and putting away her laser blaster. The soft sound that greeted the king and queen when their eyes fluttered open was a welcome thing. They moved about, trying to decide if they were hurt anywhere, and since they didn't, they were soon rising from the ground to look around at the dark sky above them. The dust storm that had engulfed them previously was still around, but not quite as strong as it once had been. "Where are we?" "No idea, love, no idea. We were in the woods, and now we are here, and I can't see any sign of woods." The queen took a few steps forward, and then there was a sound of splashing of water against her leg. She withdrew it instantly. "Well, we can't go forward, as there's water in our way." "Okay, let's head back the way we came." "But didn't we fall from some sort of hole?" "I believe so, yes, but the sky shows no signs of having a hole in it. And the ground here shows signs to me of being a beach, so I think it's okay." "We should move carefully then. No need to take any chances." The two had a few feet separated from one another and began to back away while looking behind them. There was nothing there that they could see at the moment, and soon they met water again. Both came to a stop before they walked into it much. "I guess we've been dropped on a sandbar of some sort." "No need to state the obvious. How far out do you think we are from some sort of firm land?" "Well, sand stays close to land, so close, maybe?" The dust of the storm, which had been obscuring things, cleared a bit, and gave them a sight of land that had a beach and trees not far away, although it was a good 50 feet, and they turned their attention to it as they spotted two soft impacts hitting the sand over there. The dirt and the sand then got thrown upwards, and it wasn't clear exactly what had happened. King Valence was quickly distracted, though, looking backwards as he heard some sort of noise. "We're not alone, I think." "What do you mean? And is it even remotely important, since it doesn't solve our problem of getting out of here, does it?" She turned to see what her husband was pointing at. There was a large fin that was cutting its way through the water towards the sandbar. "A water creature? Why are you so worked up about that?" "It's an alien that we don't know anything about, headed straight towards us. We have no guards or weapons to protect us." "You don't. I have things that will help protect me." She flicked out her hand as the dust and orange dirt obscured their view again from all around them. With a cough, Cordite sat up, finding himself surrounded by sand, and it was slightly falling in on him. Worried that he was about to be buried under it, he scrambled to get out and looked about where he was. It was a sort of beach area he found himself on that was quiet and dusty, obscuring a view about 4 feet out. It was an orange dirt that seemed to be flying around, but he could still make out that there was some water nearby. "Hello? Utility? Anyone?" "Ow!" The familiar voice of Tulis made him look to his right and recognize that there was an indent not far from him. Having gotten up, he moved over and saw that she was lying in a spot, blinking and looking lost. "Where are we?" He offered her a hand to get her up, which she gladly accepted. "On a beach somewhere within this planet. It's no longer pink, by the way, and I think we've gone down a level or something." "Oh, well, that is interesting." "Is it?" Now up on her feet, she looked around, getting a feel for things. "Yes, it feels like I've been here before." Like one of those people in a past life or something?" "No, stupid. Just the feeling of being close to something I once experienced thanks to my parents. My mother showed me a secret chamber in the castle that allows one to see things. I'd sort of long forgotten about it since I was young when we did it, but now, for some reason, it's bubbling up." "I'm guessing that means near the treasure?" She looked at him surprised for a second, but shook her head no. The dust storm cleared around them, and then looked around for a moment, seeing where they were. It took but a second to spot two figures about 50 feet away. Something large jumped out of the water as a strong wind then blew the dust back across their perspective view again, with a faint sound of a scream. What was that? I think we both can only offer bad guesses at that, and staying right here might put us in danger, so shall we move? Where are we going to go? We don't know anything about this place unless your spacesuit tells you anything. I'm surprised you still have that thing on, by the way. Well, I didn't get a chance to remove it. And, spacesuit. Can you contact anyone, or do you even still work? Oh, I'm still here, yes. As for contacting the president, that is a no-go in this area at the moment. Can you tell us anything about this place? There was a soft hum from the suit, and then a click. Oh, well, from what I can tell, you're on the second level of the fourth part of this planet. A gateway should take you deeper to where you need to go. Treasure hunting, I assume, is what the mission was? You got that from... Well, our ship can scan planets, and I still have a remote link, slightly, still there, allowing information to pass between us. I can try to send them a communication line if you want. I don't know. And if we get in danger and no one ever knows what's happening to us, your brother is likely to follow us regardless of what we do, but still, it would be better if we had some form of comms with anyone. She still looked hesitant, but was then distracted by the sound of thrashing in the water nearby. The noise was loud enough, and both took a few steps to back away from it. Spacesuit, can you inform us if that creature out there wants to harm us that we can hear? You didn't answer my previous question. I cannot give you an answer until you reply to my inquiry, please. Fine, yes, you can tell them that we're headed further down, I guess, and all that you know. We're following where this world takes us to find the treasure. That might be downward, might be somewhere around here, I don't know. Understood. There was a buzz, and a moment went by. Dealt with, and it will reach them, hopefully, shortly. As for the creature, it is a shark void, which inhabits this part of the planet. It can get on land via legs or go through the water. Generally seen mostly on water planets. It doesn't eat often, but when it does, it likes to eat a lot, and it is not particularly picky when it comes to what it eats. Cordite turned to Tulis, who was going to say something, but with the splashes in the water sounding closer, he merely grabbed her. What are you doing? The woods were but a few feet away, and hoping that the creature wasn't going to follow them, he pulled her in that direction. A cold night had enveloped the Galactic group, who all sat around. There was a fire going not far away, and they'd been joined by the stragglers from the Grogians who wanted to rest from hiking for most of the day. Francis wasn't too far away from his associates, leaning against a tree when a buzzing noise interrupted his peace and quiet. It took him a moment to realize that his spacesuit communicator was trying to get him to notice it. When he did, he touched the button on his helmet that allowed it to communicate. Apologies, but I have an important news to bring to you. I know you may or may not trust me on this, but I'm speaking for Cordite Mercury. What is it? Is he alive? Yes, he is fine, and is exploring the levels of this planet as he heads towards something. It might not be healthy for either of the two down there, though, so I figured I should warn you. Why, tell me? I wanted to make sure that the word reached everyone, and not just the president. Goodbye. The buzzing noise ended as Francis looked up and around at the pirates. Anyone want to jump into the water with me? Ophelia perked up at this, from her nuzzling against the side of Lion. Why would we drown ourselves in water? I mean, it sounds better than sitting around here, but I'm not too eager for death. It does lead to death, right? It leads us somewhere else, and from my understanding, we don't actually drown. There was a dubious look from Ophelia, but both Mott and Nero were now by Francis's side.
Is my sister in trouble?
It doesn't sound like it. No, what I was told was that they're going further down into the planet. They're not asking for help, then. Francis could offer a shrug to Mott, but stopped himself as he saw Utility snaking his way around to be a part of this. Maybe not, Mott. What do you want, Mr. President? This stopped the President, who smiled and nodded to each of them. Wondering how you knew things? He got even closer now, examining each of them in the face, before moving on to the next alien. Same way you do. The information was relayed to us by the space suit, though in your case I'm sure it's one of your soldiers or informants or something. I see. Well, with those two apparently surviving the trip, that means the next bunch can go down. But I take it you don't want it to be us pirates, do you? Pirates after pirate would be a bad thing. You could team up and try things. We are both smarter than that. There was a distant splash as a few soldiers jumped in. Nero wasn't having any of this and charged over, not being stopped by anyone as he too jumped into the water. You're okay with him going, though? Well, he isn't a pirate, and is more of a headache than anything else. It's fine if he goes. Well, I already said that anyway, earlier. The rest of you get to stay for the moment, though. They waited a moment more for more explanation, but none came as Utility was now moving away from them. Queen Strand stood her ground on the sandbar. The creature that had made her husband vanish hadn't come back yet, but she knew it was probably a matter of time before it did, and she was going to be ready for it this time. Come here, shark creature. I've got a little poison needle for you to take. The splashes of water that hadn't been far off were now gone, and she looked around carefully. No signs of Valance or that creature yet. Her thoughts worriedly kept her turning around in the small sandbar, pacing from one side and then to the other. A soft thud caught her attention when she wasn't looking, and she froze up. It sounded like it hit somewhere behind her and to her right. There was a moment of nothing, followed by another thud and then another. Now she turned. Who is there? A galactic soldier had gotten themselves out of the little sand mud indent that they were in and spotted her. She readied one of her darts and snarled. There you are, a sign that the treasure is nearby. Another 2 soft thuds hit the ground, and it was a moment before Nero emerged from one of the spots. He looked shaken up and trying to get a bit of sand out of his ears, but wasn't paying attention to anything else. You're the Queen of the Grogians, correct? What are you doing here? Fighting a goddamn shark creature. There was a heavy splash in the water, followed by another, drawing everyone's attention as the dust storm cleared a bit. They could see a fin that was headed through the water, right towards the sandbar. That thing is coming to kill us. I do hope you have your rifles ready. End of Part 10, Pirates, Politics, and Potentially Treasure, Book 2. Thank you for listening.